unpacking today's headlines. This is Souls and Liberty in Depth.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to In Depth, a production of Souls and Liberty, brought to you by MyPillow.com in partnership with them. As we say, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad. That's spiritual. On the earthly side, victory, victory, that's our cry, V-I-C-T-O-R-Y. Joining us today is Jim Ellis, political gurus. Remember, this is the whole heartache of this season. How you doing, Jim?
Great. Very well. Thank you, Gary. It's very nice. You said, you're going back to your cheerleading days at Notre Dame?
Yeah, that's exactly. It was one of the cheers I had to do trying out for Leprechaun. I actually liked it. It was all fun stuff, you know. And when you crush your, opposition, like Catholics came out and crushed communists on Tuesday. That's the very first thing I want to talk about since we are Souls and Liberty. The Catholic vote, I mean, it was like astounding.
Yes.
20 points against Kamala. Do you think Catholics got the message? She hates your guts? Our guts?
Yeah, apparently so. Apparently so. And maybe, this will end the FBI inquisitions of Catholic churches. And I think that is a given as soon as we get a new attorney general. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure one of the first things President Trump will do is fire Christopher Wray as the FBI director. A lot of these people, I think, are going to resign ASAP. I doubt they want to wait around to have him fire them, but I'm pretty sure the new president will make a replacement there.
Pretty sure. I was astounded that it was, it's one of those questions too, is the Catholic vote causal? Like, does the country follow the Catholic vote? Not consciously, but, is that, or do Catholics just have sort of a general sense of things like the rest of the population? Because this was a major shift to the right.
Yes.
48 states shifted to the right, some very noticeably, and only 2, Washington State, not really a surprise there, but even there was only a tiny shift to the left. And oddly enough, Utah, a tiny little shift to the left, but all the rest of this, it's overwhelming. It looks like, Catholic vote was right out there in front.
Well, I mean, a lot of it, too, is groups like Souls and Liberty and other Catholic organizations have been getting the message out, and I think it was received. And this proves it was received because this is a definite change in Catholic voting behavior. So there's no doubt about that. And obviously, it does coincide with the things that have been going on and Harris's attack on the church and the government's attack on the church. So, yeah, I think people got the message. I think that's clear.
Yeah, they really did.
And they took action.
And that's the big difference. It wasn't just, talking about it and looking at stuff, but it actually translated into, tangible stuff. Let's do a little recap. I'm going to take a slight little break here real quick because MyPillow.com is who, helps keep us on the air.
Of course.
So we'll take a little break, give them a little tip of the hat. And I'm going to come back. We're going to talk about, first the presidential race, and then later in the show, we'll talk about how Congress is going, both Senate and House, and what implications that is. But it looks like an all red Washington, D.C. So we'll talk about that right after this.
Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on the screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever on TV, including my standard size MyPillow, only $14.88. They've never been offered this low before. We have limited quantities at this price, so limit's going to be 10, and once they're gone, they're gone.
All right, Jim, welcome back. Let's talk about the presidential race here. I mean, this was, it's astounding. I don't really think, people were saying, well, this is a possibility, but it began and kind of just kept building. I was watching the popular vote from the very first instant. There was never, ever a moment where she was ahead in the popular vote, ever.
That was the biggest surprise to me on election night, him winning the popular vote. And I mean, if that doesn't shut the other side up, I don't know what will, because, of course, and I don't think we're going to hear any complaints about the Electoral College now. It's we have to go with the popular vote winner. Okay, we'll do that this time.
That, sure.
But it really is astounding. Now, there's a lot of votes still coming in California, and it'll tighten up because of that. But because as we've talked before, the way they count out there are millions of votes still to come in out there. But I think he's got about a 6 million vote lead nationally on the popular vote. So I don't think that's going to change. I mean, it's not like he's going to get no votes coming in these extra times here. But
yeah, it looks
as
like
I said when we talked before, we were definitely going to be in political overtime, and we certainly are here. But luckily, at least with the presidential race, we know that. We know the Senate has a Republican majority. It's just how big is it? And the House is still outstanding, although it looks pretty favorable for the Republicans to hold at least the type of majority they have right now.
Yeah, and there's an interesting scenario in my old state of Michigan. I was actually in Minnesota also early in my career, but in Michigan, Elizabeth Slotkin eked out a senatorial race where there wasn't a flip. It would have been nice to get that, obviously, because then it would have been a flip. Yeah. For the Republicans, she barely beat Mike Rogers by, like a hair, and immediately got up there and said, abortion, going to keep abortion. It was the very first thing out of her mouth during her acceptance speech. But what was interesting is that, she was a member of Congress, and she left that seat to run for Senate, which just kept it a Democratic seat, but her old seat flipped to Republican.
Yes. One of the few flips on either side.
Yeah.
So that was a big win for Tom Barrett, who's a former state senator there. He ran against her last time and she beat him. And so he comes back in the open seat and takes it this time. It's the Lansing area congressional seat. And then there were two in Pennsylvania that flipped to the Republicans. And those are a big deal because there just aren't many races flipping for either side. And so that will help with a small Republican majority. With these types of small majorities in the House, every seat matters.
Sure.
And so that was a big one. That was a crying shame about Mike Rogers. He's such a good guy. I know him quite well. And if I could have picked any one of these Senate candidates to win, I would have picked him because I think he's the experience level he has and the type of person he is. He would have been great with a 6-year Senate term. But unfortunately, he missed it by that much. And so but, Alyssa Slotkin, in her defense, I mean, she did stand up to Nancy Pelosi a couple of times when she was in the House. She had a couple of close elections, and she got that message. And I think this is a message to her. And if she responds the way she did in the past, because they expected to win that one easily, the Senate race, maybe she'll be a little bit better a senator here.
Well, the good thing is also
she was in the House. So
if you're going to, with the Senate, I mean, look, we've got the majority. It's 52 to 48 right now. I'm sorry, it's 52 to about 45, I think. Is that right?
And with 3 outstanding. We'll talk about those. Yeah.
Right, Arizona, Nevada, and Pennsylvania. Looks like might get Pennsylvania. If that's the case, it's going to be 53 to 47. The other two aren't looking so good.
Actually, the Nevada race looks. I did the numbers on Nevada. I think Sam Brown actually has a chance on that one.
Really?
So we can talk about that when you're ready. But there's a caveat, of course, in this Nevada case.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sure, because there always is if there's a Democrat involved. There's always an asterisk.
Well, they did this before the election. Yeah. Before the election, a Nevada judge ruled that they're going to accept all these ballots coming in after the election until Friday, regardless of when they're postmarked.
That's ridiculous. It's just stupid. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that's why it's held up. But if you look at the Sam Brown, who is the disabled veteran there, he was under merciless attacks for being pro-life.
Right.
And he's ahead by about 2,500 votes. But the encouraging thing for him is if you look at Clark County, Nevada, which is 70% of Nevada lives in Clark County, which is Las Vegas.
Right.
A Republican to win needs about 44% of the vote, and he's right there. He's at 44.5. Trump, by the way, was almost carried Clark County, which is unheard of.
Wow.
He's less than a point behind in Clark County. So he's like 4 points ahead of where he needs to be to win the state. So I think eventually Trump will win Nevada.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the state is performing really well as well. So
sure.
I think actually I didn't think Sam Brown had much of a chance until I really did the numbers yesterday. I said, he actually has a chance to hold on and win this.
That's good.
So we'll be watching that one really closely.
Well, that would be 5 flips. If I got my math right, because it was 51. Wasn't it 51-49? Yeah, 51-49 Democrats, and if it flips and go, I mean, that's a 5-seat flip in the Senate. That's 10% of the Senate.
Yeah, yeah. It could if David McCormick hangs on in Pennsylvania, and of course you never know what's going to happen out there.
Right.
They had a problem naturally with machines in one of the counties. It was a Republican county.
Yeah.
So once those votes come in, that should help McCormick.
Sure.
And he's up by about 30,000 votes. And I was also, if you can believe these numbers of what votes are outstanding.
Right.
And you can't.
Yeah.
He might have a chance to hang on there because he's up by about 30,000 and they're reporting 97% in.
Right.
I mean, that'd be a pretty big flip with the number of votes that should be outstanding, and particularly with that Cambria County, which should help McCormick. So those two might be interesting, and the Republicans still have a chance to get to 54, which would be outstanding.
Sure would be. Sure. Yeah, that'd be tremendous. I mean, that's pretty much a bulletproof Senate at that point. Let me ask you before we go to our next break.
Yes.
I want to do the polls autopsy with you. It's not like many polls weren't saying this might not. That this might happen. But even Nate Silver and all his millions of permutations and stuff he does in 538 were like, well, there's this 6% chance there might be this outcome, which means there's a 94% chance it won't. Is political polling kind of dead now? Not that they won't do them and everything, but they have been wrong 3 cycles in a row, and not necessarily turning the corner. They just don't seem to be able to capture the national mood. To have this was a tsunami. This was a red tsunami, and to completely miss this.
No, this was big
in your polling. That's like nuts.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure you can say you missed it. First of all, there's so many polls now, and some of them did have Trump winning the popular vote. And what they have done 3 consecutive times now, and we talked about this on the show before. Is there a Trump underpoll? And yes, there was again. Remember, I was on before and talked about my Democrat consultant friend, and we were going back and forth, and he was claiming they fixed that. And what you're seeing is Trump's real support. He doesn't have any more than he used to have. That proved wrong.
Right.
Trump certainly did get more support than he had before. Yeah. So they missed that part. But there were plenty of polls that had Trump possibly winning the popular vote, and plenty where he was ahead in these states. So, yeah, they missed some of it. They missed the margin.
Yeah,
but I don't think they missed the possibility or what would happen here that this could happen. It looked to be really close, and in the end, it really wasn't. And a place like Nevada is a real good example here, where nobody would have predicted he was breaking even basically in Clark County. And then if you look at Arizona,
which
Maricopa County is a similar setup.
It's Arizona's Trump land.
And if you look at Maricopa County, which of course, like Las Vegas and Nevada, it's one of these western states where one city dominates the state. Mm-hmm. He was ahead in Maricopa County.
Yeah.
So I went in and looked at it and said, well, how far is Trump behind in Maricopa County with the votes outstanding? And then I look at, he's ahead, and so that was something you wouldn't have expected. And so that's, I think, where they missed. So they missed the margin. And once again, they missed the underpoll. So they get the Democrat vote pretty closely, but they don't get the Republican vote. And that's their problem. And the reason is they just can't get enough Republicans to respond to these polls. That's really what it is. Yeah. And then they underestimate what's really happening out there.
Yeah, I don't know how you as a pollster, I don't know how you bake that in. I was talking to a good friend back in Detroit last night for a while, and we were talking about this very issue, and I said, I don't quite get. They said, they've adjusted. This was all the chatter beforehand, in that last week. Well, they've adjusted the polls now to incorporate in the idea of the Trump underpoll. And I'm like, well, what the hell does that mean? You would just add 2 points to Trump, like out of the blue? What do you mean you adjusted the polls?
Kind of.
You say, and
they all do that a little differently. So, again, if you look at Robert Cahaley with Trafalgar,
right?
The Trafalgar Group, once again, was tracking it very closely.
Yeah. And
so I generally follow what they have. And he was predicting before the election, 2 days before the election, he was on TV predicting this very thing would happen.
That's correct.
That the other pollsters were missing it. They were underpolling Trump. Watch what happens Tuesday night. And he was right again. He was right.
Again, that's 3 times in a row.
But what they do, and the reason he's, excuse me, my voice, the reason he's right is they have a different methodology. and they will have a pool of like 50,000
Yeah.
responders. And then they have different ways of contacting these people. So his methodology is a little bit different, and it's generally been much more accurate than the others.
Yeah, it looks like, Trafalgar, Atlas Intel, Rasmussen.
Yeah.
Rasmussen was on a podcast, I think two days before the election, may have been election eve, and was saying this very thing, that, not that this is absolutely going to happen, but was cheering on that there was a pretty substantial possibility that the outcome we got is the outcome we were going to get. And once again, it was Rasmussen. So once again, you look at this kernel of like 3 or 4 of these pollsters: Trafalgar, Atlas Intel, Insider Advantage, Rasmussen. The competition is really between them. Everybody else is like a has-been. They're wrong, they're off, they underdo this, they overdo that. I mean, these 4, I mean, this is it. We've been saying this, Jim, you and I, since 2016. These are the 4 you got to look at.
And then they say, well, these are conservative pollsters. They skew to the right. Yeah, but they're right more often than the other ones.
Who cares? Who cares what the pollster's personal view is, as long as those results come out correctly?
Right.
Yeah. It's
right. And they were. You're right. Those 3 were closer than the rest of them.
Yeah. And I would say, just, again, I'm not a pollster, but, I follow polls very, very tightly and closely, and studying them a lot because of my career in journalism. And the others are, I mean, nobody's off by 20 points. That's not the point. The point is, did you call the winner? Did you call a winner? Were you correct there? And were your margins well close, well within? So that they were almost on the spot, off by like maybe 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. And the answer is, with those 3 or 4 polls, the answer is always yes, yes, and yes. And with all the other guys, it's like, well, maybe, I don't know, well, I got lucky here, well, I struck gold there, but I screwed up there. They're always wrong. And that's YouGov and ABC and CBS News and Marist and New York Times, Siena, and all of them. I mean, there's a certain hierarchy there as well. But I mean, as we roll around, again, I'm just saying this now so we can put everybody on the record and put things in people's minds. Anything these guys say, I think you can ignore. I particularly think you can ignore it if it skews differently, particularly the left, of these 3 or 4 guys over here. We've seen this now in 2016. We saw it in 2020. We saw it again in spades last night, or this cycle, Tuesday night.
You always have to. That's why you have to look at all the polls. You have to look at them all and get an idea of what's happening. And it is, again, those 3. You're right. They were much closer. And remember, on the show we talked too about that Iowa poll,
right?
Which was the gold standard of Iowa. And that polling firm, the Selzer Company, they had hit it on the money several times, but they were so far off this time it wasn't even funny. So they were predicting Kamala Harris was up 47 to 44. Trump won by 13 points.
I was going to say that's a 16-point error.
Yes. When 3 other pollsters had it pretty close.
Right.
So they released polls after that one came out, because they always make a big deal of that one, the Iowa poll from the Des Moines Register.
Right.
3 other pollsters came out with other data. Emerson College was one of them. They had it up. They had Trump up, 8, and 9 points.
Yeah.
So, they had it much closer, obviously, but he wins by 13.
Right.
So it's hard to miss it by more than that. And the other thing and we talked about this on the show, that poll was off, because it was talking about how the women vote was like 2 to 1 against him in Iowa, and the 65 and older females were like 63% for Harris.
Yeah.
And there was just no other data that supported that.
Right. Yeah.
And we said it at the time, and we were right.
And it didn't turn out that way. So it wasn't.
No,
even close.
it certainly did.
Before we go, I want to go on on sort of the eye-popping numbers again. Maricopa County, he's in the lead. Clark County, he's essentially neutralized. Miami-Dade, he flipped. It is a red voting county. And New York City, he moved the needle there almost 20 points to his direction. Red. I mean, New York City's virtually purple, not quite, but virtually purple. at this point. How do the pollsters miss this kind of thing?
Well, there was some hidden vote there, I think. And another example is Penn State area, State College, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
He carried that county.
Yeah.
He carried the county that houses Penn State University. And a friend of mine from Pennsylvania says, well, that's the Jewish vote. There's a lot of Jewish vote in that area. And that's not a joke, too. Obviously, there's another group that swung towards Trump and got the message.
Yeah.
In terms of what was going on with them and the attacks on their community.
Sure.
And I think that has a lot to do with New York City.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, large. New York City has the largest concentration of Jewish voters anywhere in the country, and of course, as we go to break here real quickly and come back, talk about Congress, and then we'll get it because I know you got a hard deadline here, hard stop. Where we would be very remiss if we didn't give a hats off to the Amish, right there in the heartland of Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Who said, we're very peaceful. We don't get involved in the government, but don't come onto our farms and tell us what the hell to do. Where do we vote for Trump? We'll be right back right after this. The establishment has tried to assassinate President Trump twice, but we can't really be shocked that those who slaughter 1 million unborn babies each year would try to kill one more human being who stands in the way of their diabolical agenda. Trump, like every one of us, including all of us at Souls and Liberty, is a sinner. But like all of us, he is in the fight and fighting for all of us to get one more chance, maybe a last chance, to save the republic. We must hang together, or as Benjamin Franklin said, we shall hang separately. And maybe far sooner than many imagine, because communists take over and always persecute Christians and Catholics in particular. Let us help you fight these forces of evil. Become a monthly supporter today so we can continue giving you the information, the tools of our faith, and the support network you need to go out and save souls and save our nation. Join our merry band of happy warriors and click below to get into the fight. We need you, we need each other. Join the resistance. Become a monthly donor today. All right, Jim. I know you're on a little bit of a deadline here, so we can get to this. So real quickly, what does control of the Senate? I know the House is still kind of up. Looks like it's going to go to Trump. That's a little bit more of a mixed bag. But let's wrap up talking about the Senate. What does control of the Senate now with 52 or 53 or 54 votes? What does that mean for the Trump administration?
Well, it's huge for the Trump administration. First of all, there's not going to be any talk about eliminating the filibuster. So this idea that they could expand the U.S. Supreme Court, or they could add Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia as states, that's out. There's no way any of that's happening. And more importantly, and particularly if they get to 54, if Brown and McCormick win, I don't think the Arizona race will turn. Then confirming his appointments. That becomes really big at that point.
Yeah.
So the more they have on the Republican side, the better. And here's another thing that's very key with this type of majority in the Senate. I think they want to continue to look at trying with this government oversight of going after these bureaucrats and going after these people that come in there and testify and just obfuscate everything and virtually lie to them.
Right.
They have some very good inquisitors there.
Yes.
That are bad. Ted Cruz. Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri, one of our favorites, Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana, Rand Paul from Kentucky. Yeah. You get them on these committees going after these people. I think they're a cut above of what we saw, the ability of the House to do that. And I think that's going to be a big difference in helping Trump as he attempts to clean up this government. And particularly if he bringing in Elon Musk, if that's going to happen, to come through and Elon Musk come through and just cut all this stuff. They're going to need backup in the Senate for that to happen, and they've got it.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question, then we'll let you go and come celebrate. In the coming days, things leading up to the inauguration. But right now, your gut. Who's the new Senate Majority Leader in the new Senate, new Congress?
I think it's Senator John Thune from South Dakota. There was always talk that if the Republicans had a big night in the Senate, like they did, that Senator Steve Daines from Montana, who's a very impressive individual, that he actually could become a dark horse for majority leader, and Trump supports him. And that was going to be the big thing that threw it over. But he took himself out of it right before the election. He said, "I'm not running for majority leader, and I endorse Senator Thune." He's running against Texas Senator John Cornyn, and so I think it's hard to read the tea leaves sometimes. And you have new people coming in too, so that could change things. But my guess is it's Senator Thune from South Dakota.
I'd kind of like Rand Paul, Senate Majority Leader Rand Paul. I think that would be an earthquake.
I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah, it's too bad it would. Imagine those here. Well, I mean, he's still in the Senate. He still gets to question Anthony Fauci.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yes, we may see the return of Anthony Fauci, maybe because Rand Paul's been pushing for that for a long time.
Oh, yes, he has.
And
now he has a majority to back him up.
He's in the majority now.
We've got the Russia stuff to investigate, because these people can't be allowed to get away with this. It's not just, we know and let's move on.
That's right.
We need to do that. We need to do COVID with Anthony Fauci. We need to go after the lawfare crap that happened, and we have to go after the 2020. All of those things are all interrelated. It's the same cast of characters. They need to be brought down, and we need to never see them again. And I think there's an appetite for that in that Senate, and certainly in the country there is.
Well, I think there is, and who Trump appoints as Attorney General is going to be absolutely key to all that. And I'm very interested to see who he chooses for that.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, but I'll throw my name in the ring. How's that? Can I do that?
Well, we need somebody as tough as you to be in that position. So
there you go. All right, that's me. That's you. That's 2 votes. All right, yes. Jim Ellis, thanks very much for coming on today, brother. It's great.
Thank you.
Certainly, as all this starts to begin to unfold more and come into focus, I'll be back on as usual a lot. One of the most brilliant men in politics you will ever want to be in touch with. All right, thanks very much. Appreciate it, Jim. God bless.
Thank you.
All right, as we leave you today, just like to say that this really has shaped up to be the election of justice. Justice is, both a natural virtue, obviously, but it has that ties to the supernatural virtue, the cardinal virtues. Sorry, not supernatural, the cardinal virtues. What is it? It's giving to each man what he deserves. If you do good, you deserve good. If you do bad, it's kind of where this whole notion, this is like a common sense, to go back to the party of common sense, it's common sense notion. If you do bad, you should suffer the consequences of it. And those elites that just got their butts handed to them never suffer the consequences of the evil they inflict on everyone else. They never suffer the consequences of, tens of millions of dead babies, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of sex-trafficked children, all the fentanyl deaths, all the victims now that are, not necessarily murdered, but that too, from all the illegal immigration. These people sit behind high walls on, property that's, acres big, set back from everything with armed guards. They have everything for themselves that they don't want you to have. And people got sick of it. And they got sick of the lies, and I have to take this COVID jab, and every bit of it, every single bit of it. This was really the revolt of the peasants against the elites. And the elites are really feeling it. They are butt hurt. But interesting, if you note, every one of them now is digging in. Adam Kinzinger put turncoat Republican, Rhino, posted on his Twitter just this morning. He said, or his X account said just this morning, I've been thinking long and hard about this, and I'm doubling down. And if you heard that, horror, wasn't it? It was barely a concession speech on the part of Kamala yesterday. I mean, of course you have to concede. I mean, you just deny the obvious. You got your butt handed to you, cackling communist. But then when she turned around to say, even though I'm conceding this, I am not conceding the fight. We must fight. And they have no intentions of giving up. And so therefore, whatever justice comes their way, and I certainly believe that there are enough people in the Trump administration, and certainly out here in Trump land, out here in MAGA country, which by the way, is almost the entire United States at this point after Tuesday night. At this point, they need to pay the consequences of what they've done. And I'm serious, and I say that needs to start with Obama and work his way down, work it all the way down. Hillary, Fauci, Obama, Pelosi, Schumer, all the media types who went along with that Russia stuff. Robert Mueller, Christopher Wray, all of them, the people who filed the FISA request based on a trumped-up Steele dossier that they all knew about, that Hillary paid for. All of this stuff, the 2020 cheat, every last bit of it, justice has to rain down on these people, A, because it should, And two, to give anybody pause when they look back in history and say, hey, maybe we can screw with this private citizen running for, running for office, and let's spy on his campaign, and let's put out all kinds of crap and work with our media allies. Maybe they'll think twice about doing such a thing again. It's not fair, it's not just to the little average normal person who just wants to raise his or her family and teach them to love God and be good citizens. When that's being crushed by these people have to pay. That's it for today. Victory, victory, that's our cry. V-I-C-T-O-R-Y. Gary Michael Borges coming to you from Houston. God love you.